Thank you for coming and listening. My name is Tanner, and I'm the host of Self-Sabotage Solutions. And on this podcast and this show, it is my opportunity and my pleasure to be sharing, solutions to self-sabotage, and also be sharing other people's self-sabotage stories, because it's so important that everyone knows that no matter where you come from, what you experience, where you are in life, that you're able to overcome self-sabotage. And so it's my great pleasure to actually have Paul Anthony here on the show today. He has a very relatable story, a very inspirational story. And I'm so excited for everyone to be able to hear it. And I'm very excited to be able to hear it myself. So, Paul, without further ado, you can start, and I guess you can just start by introducing yourself, and then we'll kind of get into the story after that part.
Yeah, thanks, Tanner. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's always good to share with people.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah,
So I live in New Zealand. I was born in England in Hammersmith Hospital, but brought out here when I was a baby. So I just know in New Zealand really. And yeah, I live in the Bay of Plenty. I come from a very small family, quite a rural type setting with that family.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in sort of on the boundaries of town and spent a lot of time in nature. 49, I live on a farm, grow my own food, raise my own cattle, live a very good life. And that's probably about the introduction really.
Well, that's fantastic. It's so cool that you live on a farm and grow your own food. I feel like some people have lost their connection with nature. Like now that some people live in the city, and like that's actually something I really want to be able to do, is live on a farm, or at least like live on my own land, be able to grow my own garden, and be able to kind of live off land. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, it's something I think that a lot of us are craving, especially now at the moment. There's a real pull to return to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, growing your own food, you know exactly what's in it. The nutritional value is much higher, gets you into the dirt. It's just it's a very rewarding experience. The cattle and raising meat, if you're going to eat meat, you should be prepared to raise it and see where it comes from, and if you're going to consume it, I believe. So that's challenging, but rewarding at the same time. You get a lot of good quality meat that has no pesticides or anything in it, and your freezer full of meat just sitting there. So it's a great lifestyle. It's not easy all the time, but it's a good lifestyle. Yeah, it's very
so
good.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, food is definitely so important, and knowing where your food comes from, there's no doubt about that. So we're here today to talk about your self-sabotage story. So, maybe like explain, where you were, like when did you start needing help, or when did you start realizing you needed help? Kind of just kind of give us an explanation, where you, where did you go in life that you started needing help, or what was happening that, led you to that point where you realized like, hey, I need to make some changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've lived a few lifetimes in the one lifetime. It's been a long journey,
Right.
and it's interesting to get to this point now and sort of understand and comprehend a lot of the programming that was put in and why I did what I did. I left school and got a mechanics apprenticeship. I didn't really gel with school. I found it challenging, to say the least. But there's so much in there and within itself. I mean, I left school with so many perceptions of how smart I wasn't, when actually smart enough to learn things that I'm really interested in. And sort of, I did the mechanics apprenticeship, but my heart wasn't in it. I really only left school to do the jobs to get out of school. And I actually developed quite a strong cannabis habit then. And so this is in my late teens, early 20s. And that had a massive impact on my learning ability, had a huge impact on my life in general. It's extremely consuming, almost possessive, the way cannabis sort of infiltrates your life and becomes an obsession. And so that floated through that whole period of time. and I had black jeans, black boots, a mullet, a leather jacket. I ended up riding a Harley with gang members, and I grew pot. I smoked pot, a lot of pot. I sold it, stole it, I cooked it. I did everything you could do with it. It was a huge part of my life, but not a good one. It really keeps you just pressed down, pushes everything down, and it really pressed me down and my light. And yeah, and that whole scene, you have so many people that sort of I wouldn't mix with now, that are involved in those worlds, and so much trouble and drama and all sorts of things. So I sort of navigated my way through that part of my life, and I managed to come out the other side alive, really. And so I sort of I got to the age of 25, and my daughter was born, and that was kind of a catalyst for change at that stage. I held this baby in my arms, and I looked down at her, and I thought to myself, I can't bring her up in this world that I'm living in. Sorry, a little emotional just thinking about it.
No, it's so
yeah. So it was a really, really powerful moment where I just shifted, and I went, I can't do this anymore. So, but to extract yourself from that is quite a long, lengthy process. I just sort of stopped smoking during the week and would smoke on the weekends. I stopped selling it, so I didn't have people coming out, and I sort of started to change. I started to look into what's life about, and you could almost call it a bit of a spiritual awakening there. I started to look into self-help things and meditation and all these other interests. I'd done karate when I was much younger, when I was 10 to about 13 or 14. So I went back to that. I started that back up with the goal of getting a black belt. And so, yeah, I had all these other focuses which sort of pulled me out of that world. And a lot of the people that were in that world just disappear. It just evaporate like flies off a dried poo. But seriously, everything changed really quickly. So that was kind of and then the marriage, well, not the marriage, wasn't married to her, but we broke up. So I became a part-time father, and that brings its own challenges and own sort of, it shows you what patterns you have, even if you can't see them at the time. But looking back now, I can definitely realize I had an idea about how life should be and how I should be in a relationship, and yeah, it didn't work out that way. So that was kind of hard at the time, because you've got that program running in the background. But yeah, that whole change of my life, I ended up stopping smoking pot altogether. And in that time I'd switched jobs. So I've done a few different things. I went from the mechanics to the forestry, and I cut down pine trees and drove heavy machinery, made logs, loaded trucks, did all of it. Again, I made it out of that alive, but it was a close call a few times. There's a few adventures in that line of work. But I did that for about 6 years. And yeah, I was sort of at the end of that period of time when I started to sort my shit out a bit and change my life. My daughter was born, and so that whole scene again was, there was a lot of cannabis used in the bush scene, and a lot of not great people. Guys reading porn at lunchtime, and I remember once I hopped out of the van. I was sitting by the van having lunch, and I was reading a book, and a guy jumped out of the van and he went, "Oh, chair, a book, eh?" Like he just was so surprised that anyone in that whole scenario environment was going to read a book. And I thought to myself, whoa, that's very telling, just that one moment. So yeah, so I applied for a job. I saw it in the local newspaper. That's showing my age there. And it was for a Kiwi can leader, which was working in primary schools with children and presenting like a life skills program. So you're looking at values and positive reinforcement and patriotism and all these different things. And you're trying to lift the kids' self-esteem. That was actually born out of a rash of suicides that happened in my small town of Martin, hometown. Yeah, about 6 people. I knew quite a few of them. Two of them really well. So yeah, group of business people got together and made this project called Kiwi Can. And I saw the advert, and I was actually at my mother's, and by this time I had a shaved head and was still pretty rough, but coming out of that roughness. And I said, "Oh, I might apply for this," and she said, "You won't be able to get that, or you won't, you can't do that job."
Right.
Basically, which you might as well throw petrol on a fire. That's just like, okay, I'm going for this job. I'm going to get this job, which says a lot about my relationship with my mother.
Right.
That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so I applied for this job and surprised myself. I actually got it, and so that really brought me out of that rough environment. So I was in a new environment where I had to be on my game. I had to be positive. I had to be a good role model. I couldn't, it was all about role modeling for the children. You're working with kids aged from 5 through to 12.
So important.
And, yeah, so yeah, I did that for about 3.5 years, and that was a real big shift in my life. And yeah, so then when that came to an end, there was a coordinator who ran it, and he'd started a tourism venture in the local town where he'd grow a maize paddock and cut pattern out of it, and then people would go in and get lost, and it's called the Amazing Maze. And he offered me a position there because I was leaving Kiwi Can. And yeah, so I accepted that, and it was a manager's position. So I again sort of up leveled. I had to do business courses for that, and management courses, and I was managing 25 casual staff. So that was a whole new learning of dealing with people. A lot of them, 18-year-olds, and I was hiring people. And yeah, there was so much involved in that in itself that again I leveled up within me and changed again. Still drug free, and yeah, it's sort of really moving forward quite well. And during that time I met a lady, and we had got engaged, and we had a house together, and it was quite a solid partnership there. But at the same time, I was still emotionally immature now that I look back, and couldn't cope with having all of that. And so even as I voice these words, I now realize I've sabotaged the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
I'd had all I wanted, and then I just kind of threw it all away. And so yeah, there was a huge implosion really in my life. The job disintegrated. They moved the whole thing to Auckland and started what's actually really quite well known now called Spookers up in Auckland, a haunted house up there. Because down in Martin, we started jumping out of the maze and scaring people, and that grew into a whole industry of its own, which I know they do in the States.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. And so we sort of modeled that and ran that for a long time. I built the props and scared people and did all sorts of crazy things in there. And then, yeah, that had just sort of disappeared. And at the same time, the relationship broke down. And I ended up living in a tent for 3 months.
Oh.
Yeah, I had nowhere to go when we split up. And I went back to my parents, but I only lasted 2 weeks there. And then I borrowed a 6-man tent and went down to the river and put this tent up. It was on private property, and yeah, I lived there for 3 months. Just cooking on a fire until I got gas, and yeah, it was an interesting experience, that alone. And it was a complete reset of my life. Like it was a lot of contemplation in that time, a lot of walking around, what am I going to do? And my car broke down. I had to borrow a car at that time too. So like it was, I felt like I couldn't really get any lower. And going through emotional breakout, which I had trouble letting go of, and all the rest of it. So, but in saying that, actually, at that time was one of the that time in the tent was one of the most peaceful and reflective moments of my life. And people would say, oh, I don't think it's good for you being down there by yourself with what you're going through and stuff. But I have zero regrets. I had some amazing experiences and real calm times there. I had a sort of spontaneous, and not enlightenment, because I'm hardly enlightened, but a spontaneous lifting of the veil on a spiritual level for me during that time, which I can still see clearly now. Everything, there was a big setting of a big cliff and bush and trees, and it just swung around, and I was down on the floodplain, and there's just so much nature there. And I was walking back to the tent, and these two paradise ducks came in, so they're big ducks, and they've got a big cry, they make a particular noise, and they called out, and I looked up at them, and everything suddenly just turned into something so beautiful that I've never seen before or since, and everything took on a golden hue, and it was like I could feel and sense the ducks' enjoyment of being alive and the beauty of nature. Sounds pretty weird, but it was just amazing.
That sounds awesome.
It was just one of those moments where the veil completely lifted, and I saw the beauty of the world. That's a treasure I took from 3 months of being cold in a tent, and tent blowing around in storms and things like that. So then I decided, what am I gonna do? And I went to Australia for a month and stayed with my best friend over there, down in Albany, which is out of Perth in Western Australia. And it was kind of a bit aimless there, but I had looked at massage as a profession. It was something I was drawn to before I did the Amazing Maze, the previous manager's job. And so I decided that I was going to go and do that. And I came back to New Zealand, and I went down to Wellington, and then just started learning. And I went back to the forestry for a little while during that time to make enough money to live as a student. And I did a 6-month course, and then I realized my life was I'd created a life in Wellington, so I moved down there and started massaging people for a living, and I've done that for 14 years now. So
wow.
I'd change sort of every 5 or 6 years. I would change jobs, but now this helping people and healing people is something I'm really passionate about. In that messy period, I got a lot of help, sort of talking things through and doing different modalities to sort of heal. And I think that's where the healer came out, because once you sort of realize how much people are hurting by feeling your own hurt, you want to help people. And that sort of led me into the massage as well. That was a sort of a way to get people in as such, and then you can help them. And so I feel very privileged to have helped a lot of people over the years, and to continue to do so. And with all that it sort of offers me, and and lifestyle and time and freedom and things, as well as helping people in general. So that's been my journey. Cannabis crept back in to my life probably in the last 5 years. I had kind of always growing it, even if I wasn't smoking it, because I'm a gardener and I just like to grow things. So I continued to grow, and it's illegal here in New Zealand. I must stress that it's not like where you are. You can go to a shop. Here it's the black market, and it's illegal. You can go to jail for it. So there's always that kind of undercurrent with it. And yeah, so I've felt this calling inside me to be better, to express more and level up all the time. And it's been a really strong calling in the last couple of years, wanting to better myself and reach more people and really affect people and things like that. And I stumbled across Jason's work a couple of years ago, started following him. I brought one of his courses and started learning about that, and then sort of put that on the burner. And I'd only smoke pot on the weekends, but that was enough to push everything back down. And then I'd clean up during the week. By the end of the week, I'm back on fire, feeling great. Friday would come. It's that pattern that he talks about. Push it back down, get stoned all weekend. And I did this for a long time. And yeah, then at the beginning of this year, actually, I decided no more, and I've stopped. And since then, especially with the teachings of the self-sabotage, it's the inner pull to express more and be more has really risen. It's not being pushed down all the time. So yeah, lots of doors have opened as that's sort of evolved. It's been unreal to watch. The more I've gone, right, I'm gonna not, I've got this new thing. If someone asks me to do something that scares the shit out of me, I'll go, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Hence I'm talking to you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, and that alone, just that mindset has actually just started opening doors. I've been now I started going to a men's group where men are sharing. There's a strong Maori element to it, the Indigenous culture here. So I've been learning lots of that language and being around that culture more, which has been so good for me on lots of levels. I come from a, hard to say it actually, a racist mindset background. So and that's something I've worked on for years and years and years to get rid of, and then to actually be falling in love with the Maori language and people, and the understanding the culture has been so healing for me. So that's been really great too. But yeah, then they've asked, so I went to that for quite a few months, and they saw me starting to open up and grow, and the things I was saying, the wisdom from the journey I've had started to come out. And yeah, they've asked me to join the leadership group, so I'm helping to run them now, which again is another level up. Yeah, I did a presentation to the men a few weeks ago about self-sabotage and used a projector for the first time, and all these little things that are yeah, just showing me I'm moving in the right direction. You know, it's not about getting a big head thinking you're great. It's just about like, where am I going and how can I help? So yeah, that's kind of the journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's very relatable. At least I know for myself, I was a big marijuana smoker as well. You know, I experienced the kind of the same things you did, where you know, smoking marijuana, like I was like, there's nothing wrong with somebody smoking marijuana my whole life, and little did I know I was actually like holding myself down because it allowed me to feel comfortable with where I was, and I didn't realize that where I was not where I wanted to be. Right, like.
Yeah,
Like I needed
exactly.
to make moves forward, but I was just like smoking marijuana every day. I was like, okay, yeah, today's good. I'm just gonna keep smoking marijuana, play some video games, you know, just do my own thing. And it started getting worse and worse and worse. And I found myself like I can't keep doing this. I gotta move forward. So yeah, your story is very, very relatable. And I think I know a lot of people probably can relate to that portion of it with the marijuana, and that's so great. So how important do you think cutting out the marijuana was for you? I know you said it was pretty important. And then yeah, let's start with that portion. Like, how important do you think that was? Like, if you would have not stopped, do you think you would have gotten to where you were? Or think you had to?
I might have got there at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a real confidence thing too. I didn't like to get stoned and interact with anybody. I would hide away. So that hiding away would spill over into me hiding away from everything else. So by not getting stoned and not hiding away, not worrying about if I'm going to run into the next door neighbor and have to have a conversation and my eyes are shot and I can talk properly,
Right.
that has stopped me wanting to hide away out in real life now. And you know, I've done videos for the men's group and all sorts of things that I would not have really done before if I had continued smoking. I don't believe, for sure. It's been a huge factor. And it's the nature of the plant is sticky, the buds are sticky, and then it's very sticky. It sticks, it wants you, just a little bit. Come and have a little bit. But and I do know it has medicinal properties when eaten, and I still have a fondness for it, but it's just not for me, and definitely not smoking it. So I'm 6 months in, and I don't have any draw anymore to actually get stoned. I did have a pull to for a long time, for those 3 months or so solidly, where I was battling away with it. But yeah, not anymore. One thing I have noticed though, which is quite fascinating, I find it relates well to the journey we're on, is that because I ran a little workshop here on the farm, where I had 6 men come out and we did qigong and meditation, breath work and ice bath and things like that. And I ran that for it was 4 hours, and I taught everybody. And again, that was something that was sort of shown to me that I should do a couple of years ago, and I just ignored it. And then finally it manifested in front of me, and I did it, and it was great, and everybody left and they loved it, and touched lives and gave people tools. And then the next day, all I wanted to do was get high. And I realized, I actually posted about it on the group, but I have thought about it so much, and I've experienced it twice. Once after the presentation I did a few weeks ago, the next day again, I had that pull. I wanted to get stoned. And it's the crab in the bucket, but it's your own crab. I'm moving into this new space, and my subconscious is going, this is so unfamiliar. What the hell are you doing? Get back here. And the get back here has always been smoke a joint. So then it was great to be able to see it from that perspective, that's what's happening, and also to see that if you want to keep going up, you can't go back down into the bucket.
So what do you think allowed you to be able to see that you were doing that? Because I'm sure before in life you had that, right? And you didn't see it, but what changed now, do you think?
The education, actually, of Mr. Christoph, and that learning about how the mind works, and really sort of sinking into that, and absorbing all that content and having it finally settle and become something you're now looking for and seeing, and you're starting to regurgitate again. I found personally that it's taken a while for a lot of things to land, but now that they've really landed and become a part of the fabric of my view of reality, I can now start seeing these patterns playing out more. And I'm pretty sure that's really all it has been. And a new level of self-awareness based on the education of the subconscious mind, which is
it's so important to know. Yeah, exactly. It's so important to know how we're influenced.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always thought, like, as soon as I learned this information, I was like, how come we're not all taught this information, like, in school, right? Like, you think we'd be taught about how like, the subconscious mind, like one of our biggest, most powerful part of our brains, works, but yet everyone's walking around and has no clue. Like, they literally have no clue what's going on. Like, I thought there was something wrong with me.
Well, we all do, and that's the problem. Everyone thinks they're broken and they need fixing when they don't. You just need a reprogram because you've been programmed with something else. And I've thought about this, like, imagine the different world we could have if the garbage that came out of the TV stopped, and what came out of the TV was positive information. and positive, positive, positive. And what you taught the kids in school was that the powerful beings they are, here's how you become that. Imagine the world you could have, like, and look at what we've got.
Yeah.
It's frustrating beyond belief.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you just look at TV nowadays, like even just from when I was a kid to now, like it's changed so much. It's gotten so much more just, I guess,
Yeah.
raunchy and like
Yep.
dark and like
Yep.
everything just has like, I don't know, it just like if I watch things now, I'm just like, what are they even doing right now? Like, how can people be watching this right now? I end up just turning off most things, which is a really good thing because I think a lot of people don't realize that how much television can
Yeah.
actually, affect us because it like when we're watching it, we're in that hypnosis state, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just going all into our subconscious minds and programming us. As
Yeah.
yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then we act it out, and there you go. I remember when I was a kid that no one would swear on TV. That wasn't a thing. The TV would there was no programs on after 10. There was no screen. Now it's 24/7, and it's just, yeah, violent and filled with sex and rubbish. I remember my daughter when she was about 10, or maybe a bit older, 12. She said to me, we were talking about music, and she said, all the music's, all they talk about is sex. She seemed really confused that that was in the music all the time at that age, you know? Yeah,
Pretty
interesting
insane.
times.
I wish I would have thought about that when I was younger.
Yeah, she's pretty smart, actually. Got switched on. Yeah.
So have you shared some of this information with her as well? And like how
Yeah,
important was that
absolutely.
with you for you, or sharing this with the people around you? Have you seen the impact in their lives as well when you share it with them?
Um, yeah, it's interesting to see the who's open to it and who isn't,
Yeah.
and where they're at
Mhm.
with their denial of their bad habits or the things that hold them back. And that's cool. Everyone's on
Yeah.
their own journey and in their own time. My daughter's very open
Mhm.
to anything like that, and yeah, I've been planting a lot of seeds in that garden and fertilizing them. She's great at manifesting things when she wants something and she sets her mind on it. That's it. It comes really quickly, and she is aware of that. And yeah, I've been doing the repetitive messages for a long time there. I would send her a message every morning on Messenger, and it would be, "You're amazing. I'm proud of you. Have an amazing day. Go and manifest your dreams today." And it was just repetitive all the time. And she said once, she texted back and said, "I love these. These make my day." You know. So yeah, lots of little things in there, and teaching her about how it works. I mean, she's 24. She's a
Right.
young lady and living her life, but she's well aware of how that works, and how powerful it is, and the corruption in the world. Yeah, she's fully awake in that sense as well.
Yeah, that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something else I was thinking about when you were talking about your tent, the part of your story with the tent, how you were living in the tent for so long. As you said, it was 3 months?
Yeah, 3 months. Yeah.
So I feel like so many people need that, like almost like to be able to just like
Yeah.
sit alone and with themselves and just like think about like what they're doing in life and like where they actually want to go in life. Like,
Hmm.
how important do you think? I know you said like that actually was like a whole like awakening for you. Like, do you think that was a very important part in your story and moving forward in life? Having that time
Yeah.
to be able to do that?
Yeah, I do. It's funny, you really often only get the lesson when you look back on it. At the time, um, it felt great in lots of ways, but it was really hard as well. But it also shows you what little you need to survive. You really just need shelter, food, water, and fire. And when I left there, all I left behind was a dead piece of grass. There was no other footprint, and it gives you that. I was having an internal reset, and at the same time, I had an external one of like, what's important, and really, it's just the internal world. you don't need that. I mean, it's nice to have the trappings, and yeah, let's go get them, because that's the world we live in. We might as well play the game. But at the same time, the real important, I believe, the real important factor of life is actually your internal state and the light you have, and how you can share that with the world, and how you can help people to bring their light out. Because yeah, so that time in the tent was definitely super reflective and really important to me, in some quietly almost weird way. Yeah, and often only on reflection I look back on it. But every time I look back on it, I just have this fondness for that time, even though if you'd looked at the situation from an outside, you would have been like, "What's he doing? He's lost the plot. He's
Yeah.
he's depressed and that." But I was actually really comfortable. Yeah, yeah,
So cool.
that's cool.
Yeah. And then also I was kind of thinking throughout your story, like you're talking about how you went through different groups of, people you were with. How important do you think it is the people who are around you? How much do they influence you? I know that's very important. It was very important in my life, changing kind of who I was surrounding myself with and kind of what I was surrounding with myself with. And I know you're like with the group of men now, and you have that amazing group of people you share information with. Like, do you think that's been very helpful for you as well?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I think as we grow and change, we vibrate on a different level, so we attract those different people into our lives.
Mhm.
Um, I have especially since the pandemic, a whole new massive group of friends that I met online through groups and things that evolved out of like the chaos, who have become really good friends, and they're very different than uh, where I've come from. And a lot of those people in the past that I do love and care about, we don't really communicate anymore, because there's not a lot to communicate about, because I've shifted into a different vibration, really. I think it has a huge impact on, and on your life. And so definitely, if you're absorbing content, that's a massive part of your content, and your subconscious mind is looking for those cues all the time in general, let alone when you actually feel an emotion for somebody else, and you respect somebody else, or you're intrigued by their story, and things like that. So I think it has a massive impact. Actually, the men's group has been amazing in that, you go along and you think you've got a few things going on, and you'll listen to someone's story about where they're at, and you're like, fuck, there's nothing wrong with me. This dude's going through hell.
Yeah.
It's a real excellent perspective shifter.
Mhm.
Puts things in perspective for you. It's amazingly. Um, yeah,
I love
it's
that.
great. Yeah, I think it's really important. Yeah,
Mhm.
huge.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know before you start sharing your story, you're talking about how you lived on the farm. You were talking about how important it is to eat like good, nutritious food and all that. How did your food intake, like what were you eating when you were, in the modes when you were self-sabotaging hardcore and smoking hardcore to like now, like what has shifted from there to there? Because I know how important food was for me when I was, making those changes. When I started eating like actually like full like nutrient dense organic foods, like
Uh,
I felt like it's a brain fog like lifted off me. I was just like,
mm,
whoa, like I have like, and a lot of people talk about how like my skin like looking like a lot more healthy and things like that. You can just like kind of tell from like looking at my pictures from before to now, like something has changed. And I think a
yeah,
lot of that had to do with food, but how important was that for you with
yeah,
food
fantastic,
preferences?
man. Well done. Yeah, exactly the same. In those early years, in my 20s, Coke, pies. I can't believe now the rubbish I put into this body of mine, this beautiful body that served me so well, and the things I put it through. Good Lord, it's unbelievable. It wasn't, and when I went for my black belt, I changed my diet a bit, and stopped eating pies, and sort of tried to eat a bit better, but still with no knowledge of good food. And in a small town, 6,000 people, in those times, there wasn't any resources. There wasn't even the internet at that time really to dive into and learn about things. So very limited in that respect, and especially the people I was mingling with and things like that. So that was a huge factor. And then the woman I met and was engaged to, etc., she was very educated on health, and I started to eat much healthier then. Whether that was a good thing, it lifted all my shit up from the bottom, probably stirred the pot. But life is life, and I haven't really gone back from that. I don't eat. I wouldn't even drink Coke. I used to drink it a lot. I watch a lot of what I put into the body now, and I think it has a massive impact, not only on the fog, on your energy and how you feel and look, but on your thought patterns. I know if I do deviate off, if you're on a road trip and you're eating pies, and it's hard to get the balance back there sometimes, and you'll waver off, and then you come home and regroup and things like that. I do know that with travel, I'll notice how much more lethargic I feel, how much slower I am. And I hate that feeling now. So it's really important for me to eat well, all the time, pretty much. Yeah, they did a study in America at a youth center, a juvenile center, where they Aubrey Marcus talked about this on a podcast, where they went in and they did blood tests and stuff on these youth that were offending and in there, and then they went in and they supplemented their diets, and they lifted all their levels of nutrients, and the violence just decreased massively within the center itself, and the reoffending dropped as well. And it just shows how important food and nutrient value is to your system and to your thought patterns. I think a lot more negatively if I don't eat right.
So important. Like, I know how important that is with, because the whole body and mind's connected, right? Like, the nutrients you get inside your body is actually what's also supplying your mind, right?
It's all one thing. We separate the two with our language, but actually it's all one thing. I actually believe the mind is the body in a sense. It's all around, either all around you or locked inside. And if you think about how we store emotions and memories in certain parts of our body, it makes good sense that the mind is throughout the whole thing. I mean, where does the body end?
And what controls the body, right? It's the subconscious mind sending all the signals.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have anything else to share with the viewers, or I think you shared your story pretty well, and I've asked you most of the questions.
Yeah, cool. I would just say, sort of answer the inner callings that whisper to us. We kind of know what we want to be or what we should be doing in many respects, and yet we either ignore them or suppress them, don't answer that call. But I think especially at this time on the planet, it's vital that we do answer that call, and that we sort of begin to believe in ourselves enough to change the little worlds around us, because we don't realize the ripple effect that has on the whole. And you can change lives with conversation. You can share a podcast with someone and give them information they've never had access to. We're in such a great time for being able to spark things in people's minds that are going to help us create the world we want to live in, because this system's broken, and so we've got to just create something new so that one can fall away and become the rock that it is. I just encourage everybody to do the things that scare you first, and move towards the light all the time. Really, that's probably about it.
Great. Yeah, I mean, and you guys can see that Paul Anthony is a perfect example of this. He even referenced that one of the things that he was scared about was coming on this podcast, and he's out here sharing his story when, sharing your story is not always an easy thing. It's a very vulnerable thing, and I hope you guys were all able to actually learn something, maybe connect with him, maybe even see it from your life from a different point of view because he shared his story. And this is really why we're doing the podcast, is so that anyone who's in like any situation, any place they live, no matter if you lived in a tent for 3 months, or where you went, if you're smoking marijuana your whole life, or you're drinking nonstop, snorting cocaine, there is a path forward. You don't have
Absolutely.
to sedate yourself to feel like your life is good. And actually most of the time that actually holds you back. So really it's important to answer your inner callings, just like Paul's talking about. So I really appreciate everyone coming to listen. I really appreciate Paul coming on to share a story. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. Hope
Thanks,
to have
Tanner.
you again in the future. And yeah, tune in this next Thursday, and I'll be sharing another podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.